Good evening, visitors, and welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Gerard Pratt, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Captain Lisa Batchelor. We welcome the veterans who have served, those who are still serving, and the families who love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony from across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. If able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's first World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through until the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Flight Sergeant Colin Henry Eastgate. Colin Eastgate was born on the 12th of November 1914 in Coburg, Victoria, to Ernest and Myrtle Eastgate. His father was an engineer and had served as a lieutenant in the First World War with the Australian Flying Corps in France and then with the Royal Flying Corps in the United Kingdom. Colin had two brothers, Jack and Robert, and a sister, June. He was a keen sportsman who enjoyed cricket, swimming and basketball, and he participated in AFL and tennis. As a teen, he attended the Colac West State School and the Colac Agricultural High School. He passed his entrance exams for Melbourne University in 1930, but after leaving school began work as a baker's apprentice. He went on to work as a clerk and then manager for Permiwan Wright Limited. On the 13th of May 1939, Eastgate married Jean Simpson, and in December the following year, a son, Colin, was born to the couple. Eastgate was working as a commission agent for the Vacuum Oil Company when he enlisted in the Royal Australian Air Force on the 4th of December 1942, aged 28. He underwent training as an air gunner and in June 1943 was made sergeant. On the 4th of August 1943, Eastgate embarked for overseas service from Adelaide, arriving the following month in the UK. As part of the Empire Air Training Scheme, he was one of almost 27,000 RAAF pilots, navigators, wireless operators, gunners and engineers who joined Australian and British squadrons in Britain throughout the course of the war. Further training followed, and on the 9th of March 1944, he was posted to number 463 Squadron RAAF. In early May, he and his crew were flying back from a raid on Schweinfurt when evasive action caused two of the aircraft's engines to fail. Just before dawn, a third engine died, and the crew decided to attempt a landing in the English Channel, hoping to be picked up from the water. As they crossed the enemy coastline, they were joined by a guard of friendly Spitfires. By jettisoning everything they could, they eventually made it back to English soil. On the night of the 10th of May, 31 Lancaster bombers from 463 and 467 Squadrons RAAF departed as part of a major Royal Air Force raid from Waddington, England. Their target was the heavily defended railway yards at Lille in France. Flight Sergeant Eastgate was an air gunner of Lancaster bomber JOE, one of the squadron's few aircraft with an all-Australian crew. 12 Lancasters were lost on the raid and 50 airmen were recorded as casualties of the mission. One of those killed was Flight Sergeant Colin Eastgate. His Lancaster failed to return to base and was presumed to have been shot down by enemy action. After the war, it was determined that the aircraft had exploded and the bulk of the wreckage fell onto a factory south of the target. Also on board were Flight Sergeants John Brown, George Dan and George Jones, Pilot Officer William Lewis, Warrant Officer Lloyd Mackenzie and Flying Officer Dudley Ward. The airmen who died in the raid were buried near where they had crashed. After the war, the remains of Commonwealth servicemen buried in Europe were examined and identified where possible. Eastgate's remains were identified by his badges of rank. He lay in a common grave at Forêt-sur-Marque Communal Cemetery, about 9 kilometres east of Lille. He was reinterred there under the inscription, "Duty nobly done, loving memories." Eastgate was remembered in his local district as a friend to many, being possessed of a happy disposition. He was sorely missed by his family and friends in Australia, who posted memoriam notices in the newspapers after his death. His father, already a veteran, served as a squadron leader with the Royal Australian Air Force in the Southwest Pacific area. His brother Jack served with the 2nd Australian Imperial Force in New Guinea. both made it safely home. Flight Sergeant Colin Eastgate's name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. A photograph of his headstone is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Flight Sergeant Colin Henry Eastgate, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you all for joining us today and wish you a very warm evening. Thank you.